Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 4, which is on covalent compound nomenclature. In this section, we're going to talk about naming compounds where both elements are found on the right side of the periodic table. The naming methods that we use are going to be completely different from what we've been doing with ionic compounds. There will be no charges, polyatomics, metals, or least common multiple finding when we do these problems. Instead, we're going to be referring to a small section on the left side of your common ion sheet, which is reserved for covalent compounds. This section contains all of the prefixes that we need to know in order to name covalent compounds. Please understand, these prefixes are only to be used with covalent compounds when we have two elements from the right side of the periodic table. The biggest mistake I find in teaching this is students often start using those prefixes in other places, including ionic compounds. Don't do this. These are only to be used when we're talking about two nonmetals, two elements from the extreme right side of the periodic table. Let's take a look at how this works. If you notice, in the beginning it says, using the prefix from the name, identify the number of each element in the compound. Again, using the prefixes from the left side. If no prefix is present on the first element, there is just one of them. Let's take a look at our first example. We have carbon with no prefix, so we'll have just one carbon atom. Our second element, oxide, which is oxygen, has the prefix mon, which means one. So we'll write a single oxygen atom. In our second example, we again have carbon with no prefix. So again, we'll have just one carbon atom. However, this time, the second element does have a prefix that means more than one. In fact, di means two. So we'll have two oxygens, dioxide, two oxygens. This is how we show that we have two oxygens. In our last example, both elements have prefixes. So our first element, di, means we have two sulfurs, and our second prefix, also a di, means we have two chlorines or two chlorides. So disulfur, two sulfurs, two chlorines, two sulfurs, two chlorines. Remember, the subscript indicating the number of that atom must come after the element itself in the chemical formula. Let's take a look at the other direction. When we are going from a formula to a name, we are going to name the first element, and if there is more than one of that element, we'll put a prefix on it. But if there's only one, no prefix. The next part says to use the root of the second element. Like back in simple binary, when we changed chlorine to chloride, we're going to do that same thing here. So let's take a look at our three examples. Here we have sulfur. There's just one of them, so we're not going to include a prefix. There are three oxygens. So in this case, we're going to write trioxide. In our next example, we have two nitrogens. So we're going to include the prefix di for two. And we have two oxygens. So again, the prefix di. Two nitrogens, two oxygens. Dinitrogen, dioxide. Notice the ending always gets changed to IDE. Finally, in our last example, we have one nitrogen, so we're going to write that with no prefix. And we have three chlorines. So trichloride. Alrighty, let's take a look at some more examples. So in these first 5 examples, we're going to name the first element. If it has a subscript, we're going to write that prefix first. So this is going to be tetra. So we have tetra, arsenic, deca. Now, if we have an A next to an O, we drop the A ending. If you forget to do this, it's okay. But standard convention has us write dec oxide with the A prefix being dropped. In our second example, we have bromine. No prefix, no prefix there, no subscript here, no prefix in the name. We have 3 oxygens, so we have trioxide. In our next example, again, no subscript, so no prefix over here. We have boron. Now, in this case, we have just 1 nitrogen. The second element will always get a prefix, even when there's just 1 of them. So we're going to put the prefix for 1, mononitride. First element only gets a prefix if there's more than 1. The second element always gets a prefix. Next example, we have 2 nitrogens, so dinitrogen. We have 3 oxygens, so trioxide. Full name of the first element, all the way up. Second element, IDE ending, IDE, 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 every time. Our 5th example is nitrogen, and then 3 iodides, or nitrogen triiodide. Now let's try it in the reverse order, starting with the name. Here's the name phosphorus, no prefix, so we have just 1. Trichloride, so we have chlorine with a subscript of 3 because of the tri prefix. 14, we have the element chlorine, no prefix, so that means we have just 1 of these. Monoxide means we have a single oxygen. Next one. Oxygen with no prefix, just 1 of them. Difluoride means we have 2 fluorines. And finally, for the last example here, we have boron, no prefix, so just 1 of them. Monophosphide, that means 1 phosphorus, so BP is our final answer. If you have any questions on how to do this, please rewatch the video, email me using Schoology, or stop by office hours. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.